works. Not so great when it doesn't. Yeah, I know. And you see, we're not yet in a generation where we can say, hey, it's going to work all the time, every time, right?
That's right.
Okay, so welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. And hey, Dave was kind of trying to get on, couldn't get in, but that's the way it goes sometimes, as we say. All right. So what have we got this morning? So
we got a bunch of stuff. I would just like I would like to say though that Karen Fraser and her seniors advisory committee will tonight be honored with a WHO designation for our city, and I suppose that they were the ones that really pushed for this. It is a WHO designation says that our city is an a senior sort of friendly city.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost the city anything, but the city does now have obligations to make sure that it stays that way.
Mm-hmm.
So hats off to Karen Fraser and the other members of the senior advisory committee.
It's a pity there isn't actually there isn't something in the press beforehand about this one, because
there was.
Really, yeah, was there? Okay.
There was. I tried to put it on here, but I don't think it went on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I tried to put it on, but it didn't. For some reason, it didn't transfer over.
Okay. All right.
We'll talk about it again tomorrow. If it does come back into the paper, we'll talk about it again.
Yeah. All right. So there's a European castle-inspired house for sale on the Niagara River Parkway. We've all seen this house, right? It's down there towards Fort Erie. Wonderful looking, superb driveway. We probably even imagined ourselves being in there. It's up for sale for $4.8 million. It's got this nice, beautiful kind of rounded turret room in the middle of it that makes it look like a castle.
Yeah, there's another one kind of like that way up on Highway 20. There's a castle-like house there too.
Yeah,
once you just get beyond the bounds of the normal part of the city.
Yeah, there's one on the curve. Yeah, I know the one you mean.
Who's got the kind of loot for this? I think what it costs.
Well, $4.8 million.
$4.8 million for anybody that wants to buy.
Yeah, not the average person in Niagara
it's a bargain.
Falls. Well, actually, I do think it is, because when you consider that there are many normal houses going for around about $1 million, to find a large place like this going for 4.8 seems to be quite a bargain to me. Yeah.
Well, it is for it is affordable housing for the ultra rich.
Yeah, affordable housing for the ultra rich. I know. Yeah. And having looked at some of the stuff in here, they're talking about it offers elegance and comfort, blending opulent design with resort-style amenities right in the heart of Canada's wine country. Well, there's no wineries down there, but yeah, I understand that. And according to the listing, it sits on 1 acre lot and boasts 200 foot of waterfront property, so owners can keep their boats there. Right, lovely swimming
nice piece
pool.
of property if you can afford it.
Yeah, lovely swimming pool, lovely wine cellar. And there's also a book. There's a library in there as well.
Maybe they could share that with Willoughby. Willoughby Township, or Willoughby's part of Niagara Falls, but the new Willoughby Library will be at that house until they build the one in Chippewa.
Well, there used to be a time when these sort of houses were often bought by the state in order to make them into something public.
Yeah, that's possible. For instance, well, yeah, they could do things like that. I when I was in Portugal, there was all this refurbishing of these very old, even the most humble of homes, and in some of the places were all getting a facelift and refurbishment. Some of the old places could not be saved except for the outside, so they would save the outside of the wall and do the refit all the inside. So they're really concentrating on keeping their old stuff good again, bringing it up to standard and not losing the character of their cities and towns. And it's happening everywhere. There's a massive amounts of work being done in Portugal.
Yeah.
So that I would say,
it
yeah,
is happening in many parts of Europe. That's for sure. You want to retain history. Not this is particularly historic, but it is nice.
Yeah, but if you said something like, for instance, if like what used to happen, people of extraordinary wealth would turn their mansions over to the city or a university. Like the university, I think it was a Western, has a mansion that was donated to them, and it's a beautiful place, but it's all full of studios for musicians. For aspiring musicians.
Mike's commenting that 4.8 million is ridiculous. But Mike, I know that you can afford it, man. I know that you can afford it. I know that you've got that nest egg sitting there waiting to happen. This has got you written all over it, Mike.
Look, Mike, if you win $50 million in the lottery, it's a bargain. Yeah,
a lot of things you could do with the $50 million, but I'm not so sure.
I like the waterfront, so I might pick it up as a cottage, some place to go, just to escape my the hubbub of this urban existence I live here. But yeah, it's a nice little cottage property. Like I said, it's a bargain, and it looks weird, but so what? It looks like a castle. But anyway, that's the thing. And let me tell you that when Paul and I were looking over the agenda yesterday, city agenda, so they're talking about a couple of apartment buildings going up on Lundy's Lane, which seems to be imminent. And I think you got 50 units in them, 25 in each building or something like that. And yet when you look over the paperwork, there's not one utterance of affordable housing.
Yeah. In an area that actually needs it.
Yeah. So there's nothing, like we're talking about 4.8 million people. I see the houses are going up and selling rather quickly again here in the area because the interest rates have gone down. But that's not going to people in town here. And another thing that was on the agenda was there are at least 144 vacant properties in Niagara Falls, vacant, and the city's going to try to come down on them and make a vacant registry.
I've been talking about that for a long time. I'm not talking about ones that have been vacant because there was a house fire last year or something. I'm talking about the ones that have been consistently vacant. We all know which ones they are. We can walk down the streets and we can say that one there and that one over there. We know which ones they are. Many of us in the local areas know exactly those ones, and we need to be stamping down on them. Starting off with local, with fines to the owners.
Yes. So I don't know. That's something that's coming. Another vacant property, and what they're trying to do is they're going to try to push them into either regurgitating them as businesses if they were before, or reintroduce them into the residential market. Of course, what we have going here is a lot of money being available for housing from the feds and Ontario, and all kinds of incentive programs to do that. But we don't have enough builders, and the builders we have shy away from affordable housing.
Yeah.
It's less profitable.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
right now, the city council should be pushing hard for that, but they're not really. They mention it here and there, and I'm sure some of the councilors are interested in that, but you have to really push them, push the developer somewhere or another, and kind of insist that affordable housing goes up. But in this case, it looks like it's going to be rather nice apartments on Lundy's Lane, but still, it doesn't look as if it's affordable stuff at all or anything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the documentation, there's no, in the presentation, there's no mention of affordable housing at all.
I've been thinking about this question about affordable housing, and I'm thinking to myself, the whole question is, and it doesn't matter where you are in the province, affordable housing comes down to a problem of no commercial developer wants to put it in. So therefore, the only option for building affordable housing is to have the municipalities build it, right? But of course, they don't have the budget.
Yes, and I don't know. It's just one of those things, and it's an indication of how our standard of living is going down. And I don't really understand the Liberal Party does not know that they're going to get blamed for this in a big way. Particularly the young vote are not going to be too happy. Someone is going to take the blame for all of this, and it's going to be whoever's in power anywhere. And right now, it is the Liberal Party in the federal government. And unless something changes drastically, they're going to get destroyed in the next election.
Yeah.
And I don't really think that's a good thing. I can see a majority going over to the Conservatives, which doesn't really bother me. It's just the cycle of life, basically, in Canadian politics. But they're going to get obliterated, and if they don't, if they're not careful, and they're not being careful right now, we'll see what happens in the long run. Oh, hi. Well, there's Chris Simone. Good morning. How about New Brunswick going Liberal? Yeah, that was a story that people kind of ignored quite a bit because of what everybody was looking at BC, but at the same time, New Brunswick were having their elections, and it's pretty much being overshadowed. But as Chris Simone said, it went Liberal. But the
New Brunswick
tend to go Liberal anyway. What?
I was going to say the Atlantic provinces have a tendency to be Liberal anyway, don't they?
Yeah, because the Eastern province needs massive cash infusion from the feds, and the feds have done that, and keeping the Eastern provinces going. So I don't think they see what side of the bread is buttered, and that happens to be the Liberals. But we'll see what happens in the federal election. There is we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely, we will. Okay. And it looks like those houses on Bridge and 4th are moving forward again. Yes, I noticed that, Chris, the other day. They put the Tyvek sheeting back on them, stapled all that onto the outsides, and maybe in the spring they will get them moving again.
The problem is how many workers are there? And
I didn't see any workers there. I just see movement.
No, I mean overall in the building them. They say we don't have enough people to put these things all together because we need them all of a sudden fast. Because in the infinite diswisdom of our political parties, that they've just kind of ignored that housing problem until it's an urgent one. And the Liberal government has exacerbated it by their immigration policies. And I guess they're I didn't put the article here, but I should. Maybe we could talk about it tomorrow. How the Liberal government has, we have massive amounts of refugee claimants now. And you think, well, Roxham Road is closed, so how can that be? Well, what's happening is they reduced they had a backlog of people trying to visit Canada, so they reduced the amount of prerequisites they had to have before they came into the country, like a return flight, enough money, and places where they could stay, making sure that everyone knew where they were going to stay. What happens is we have massive amounts of people coming into the country and claiming refugee status as soon as they get here. And the students who now see themselves vulnerable to being sent back home have in mass claimed refugee status. Now, of course, eventually they will get, and once you claim refugee status, you have a legal right to work, as you might not have as a student, but you have the legal right to work, and you have a legal right to wait till your case is being determined. That means you could be here for years before you're sent home.
Yeah. And actually, from the viewpoint of, and of course, given the situation between Canada and India, not surprising, that continues. That would be a key issue right now for those Indians to utilize that. Yeah, they can utilize that.
Now, the Indians are taking the next step and thinking, because we have friction between our country and India, they believe that the Indian students are going to be the vulnerable ones, and they're the ones that are going to be sent back just as a slap in the face to India. Well, that's not the case at all, but I can see where they get that idea.
Yeah. All right. Okay, moving on. Motorists are being advised by the OPP that there's increase of risk of wildlife-related motor vehicle collision in the upcoming months. I saw this at the weekend. I was out for a drive, and short drive, and there was actually a deer or something hit somewhere on the roadside. So yeah, doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, especially if you get off outside the city. I can tell you, I had a car that was completely written off because I hit a deer. I was driving home one night from work, and I'm driving along, and it was like, came out of nowhere. It was like deer, just there, boom, deer.
Yeah,
and I had a big car.
It wasn't on the road. It just come across your view, right onto the road. Yeah.
Right there. It was like, I'm driving along. It's a nice clear night. I've got my high beams on and everything. There was no fog or anything. And it was just like deer right there. Like, I don't even know where it came from. It was just in front of me. The minute I hit the deer, at the same time I hit my brakes, my car was completely written off, and it was a big car. It was a big Ford Crown Victoria. And I killed the deer instantly, thank God, because other folks I know that took that same route back and forth to work hit deers as well, and the deers were alive but injured, and they had to call a cop to come and shoot it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some of them waddle away with a broken leg or something like that, but I was lucky. I killed it instantly, and it was a big deer, a big buck, and I still got one of its antlers here. But my car was completely wiped out. I've known people in motorcycle. I know a woman whose boyfriend got hit, was a motorcyclist, hit a deer, and then got hit by oncoming traffic, and it's been suffering ever since. So so keep your eyes out. Keep your eyes out. Now, I used to put whistlers on my car. They're supposed to fend off wildlife. I don't know if it really worked, but I put them on anyway. Just it seemed to work, because I would see deers come to the road, turn around, and go back. So of all of the close calls I've had, I actually did kill a deer, but it could kill you. And that's particularly the small cars we have nowadays. You could be very vulnerable if you're there.
Well, what the OPP is saying is basically, if you see wildlife near the road, reduce your speed and prepare to stop. Honk your horn to alert the animal and to signal other drivers. Daytime, that's probably wise advice. Nighttime, there's probably little you can do. You won't even see them, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you get in your car and drive down the road and see a big Jabberwocky, that gummy you took last night hasn't worn off.
Yeah. Any other? So they're basically saying 6 tips: reduce speed, watch for signs, use high beams wisely, watch for movement, brake firmly but don't swerve, always stay sober, alert, and undistracted, and seatbelt wearing when driving. Yeah, particularly seatbelt wearing, because you hit one of those things. You've hit one, right? So were you wearing a seatbelt at the time?
Yes, I was. And I was lucky of it. I've been in a couple of, I was in a more serious car accidents once with a seatbelt on. And that time I had a big Grand Marquis, which is a huge car, and I got hit by a pickup truck head on. Saved my life.
Yeah.
The seatbelt saved my life.
Thank you. You having had that experience with the deer, I thought that you were the best one to say that. Right. So
yes, indeed. Yes. Seatbelts on all the time.
Yeah, on all the time. Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah. Even if you're just going 100 yards down the road, because you just don't know. Right.
Yeah. If you're in rural areas, you're going to go outside of Niagara Falls in the rural areas. Be especially careful. And if you do that a lot, you might want to invest in a device that makes some sort of sound that animals can hear, that will alert them that you're coming. So that's another advice. That's what I did, and I think it worked, because I buy these whistlers and mount them on the car, and I saw deers come to the road, turn around and go back. Raccoons come to the road and turn around and go back. Raccoons are a big problem too, because they're kind of dumb. They keep going across the road, and they're hard to miss too.
Well, and plus they move so slow when they're walking across the road.
Yeah, and they can really tear up your front end. I know at least 1 or 2 people whose cars had to go into the shop under insurance because of what damage the raccoon did to the front end, especially a front wheel drive. They can do quite a bit of damage.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind. Plus, you don't want to kill an animal if you don't have to. I mean, live and let live.
Okay. So moving on, Mark Carney is saying he's going to enter politics. He says he plans to enter politics, but won't say when, where, and what job he wants, telling a few liberals you can't map these things out. Right.
Well, so, surprise. Aren't we surprised? No. we knew Carney was
well, we knew that from last year. We had that
wagon, don't we?
Yeah. We had that discussion about Mark Carney last year. And that was exactly how we felt, that he was circling the wagon, ready to make his preparations to enter the fray somewhere.
Yes. Now he may not enter now. He may wait till the Liberals get a total shellacking, or he may come in if Trudeau does step down. He may be convinced to come in and be the leader, because he is a banker and an economist, and he has rubbed elbows with some of the most important economists in the world.
Yeah.
He ran the Bank of Canada. He ran the Bank of England for a while. He knows just about any and all of the important economists and bankers and industrialists there are. So he definitely would have the cred to rebuild our economy. And because our economy's productivity is so pathetically bad, as a matter of fact, the Bank of Canada, now not under Carney, but when it just a few months ago said emergency break the glass, that, and they were speaking of the productivity of Canadian industry, and which is one of the worst ever. It hasn't, the gap between
well, who
Canadian
better to understand this?
Yes. So he definitely
in a way,
has.
Who better to understand exactly this problem? He's got the right credentials. He's worked for, both the Bank of England and Bank of Canada. He understands the economics. Yes, in a way, it would be. But for example, if he's going to stand in as a liberal, I would also say that from my perspective, I would say that waiting till after the next election would be a far more decent thing to do. In fact, waiting a little while.
He says in the article itself is you can't really map these things out too clearly what's going to happen. He's going to make himself available for liberal politics, which is the kind of leader they're going to need, because liberal has JT has the suave and the attractability, but he doesn't have the governing ability. He's got great ideas, but obviously scandal after scandal, mismanagement after mismanagement. He does not have the respect of anyone anymore. But if you get a guy like Carney in there, he's going to be a no-nonsense guy. He's going to say, this is what we need to do to improve the economy, this, and this. And he can put the idealism aside and interpret.
But in a way, he needs to also serve a little bit of time on the backbench and a little bit of time as a minister, in order to actually see what each of the roles are, what the duties in each of those roles are, in order to understand it before he can take on a leadership role.
He's being compared to Ignatieff, who didn't work out as a liberal leader. Ignatieff was an intellectual that could not convert his expertise into the kind of a charisma you need to get elected. I think Mark Carney's reputation precedes him, and he'll have a good shot at it. But the problem is the Liberal Party's in bad shape right now.
Yeah, it is. And the thing about this is that, and you don't want to be taking over a Liberal Party that might well be out of politics out of government for 10 years.
Yeah. So a guy like Carney could rebuild the party if it collapses. He could step in, I suppose.
The party over a 5 to 7 year period, so he's then a leader that everybody can support in 5 to 7 years' time.
Well, hopefully he'll do it in 4 years, because as it looks right now things could change, but as it looks like now, the Liberals are going to get clobbered. They're hoping that the economy will improve in 2025, and it looks like it will do that. And based on that, they'll regain their popularity, including their leader's popularity. I suppose they're worried they're hoping too that they can find some dirt on Polyev to push that around too. But that's all guesswork. And
even if they recover 5 points in the polls, they're still massively behind in the polls.
Quite right. So I don't know, like Carney is there, but he's going to pick his moment to get involved. And if he's going to walk into a fiasco, he doesn't want to walk into a fiasco.
No,
he'll be there to pick up the pieces afterwards, maybe. And he'll have to rebuild the party in 4 years. Otherwise, it's a waste of time for him. because if the Conservatives win this next election, whenever it happens, that the NDP and the Liberals are avoiding that at all costs right now, because they are not prepared for an election. The Conservatives are. So I don't know what. Right now, tomorrow, the Liberal caucus is going to have an intervention with their leader and tell him that he's got to leave. However, other party faithful said we don't have enough time to pick another leader, so we can't, lose him.
Yeah,
I don't know. Right now, it doesn't look good. If Trudeau hangs on and he does better than expected, even if he holds the minority, or not a minority government, or becomes the opposition leader, and he doesn't do too bad as an opposition leader, he will be exonerated. But what the Liberal backbenchers are worried about is a complete tsunami.
Yeah.
And
part
absolutely. Of that, because Trudeau as a leader is much less popular than the Liberal Party. Right now, the Liberal Party isn't polling very high, but their leader is polling much lower than the party itself, which exacerbates the situation. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Maybe on Thursday morning, we'll know better what's gone on.
I don't see Carney stepping into the fray for the next election anyway. Before the next election, I might be wrong, but I think he's going to be a pick up the pieces guy.
Well, he said you can't map these things out. So when he was questioned by this, what way he's going to go, he says you just can't map these things out. So he's going to watch and see, and he may be called upon to step in to be the leader before the whole thing collapses. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting question for you. Does he speak French?
I imagine he does, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Mike Cushman is tell Carney to go back to England.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know what he's going to do politically. He did really common sense things for the government. Remember, he's the guy that told them, look, your immigration thing is out of control. He's also the one that told them, look, your productivity is hapless. The Liberals were not too keen to hear those words, but when it came from someone with the cred that sort of the power of the former governor of the Bank of England and the former governor of the Bank of Canada comes down and says, you're chumping out big time, Liberals, you're way behind. Then they listened, but not before that.
Yeah. Okay, so Ford is turning to a former Trudeau cabinet minister in order to get himself help with the recruitment of family doctors. This is her name, former federal cabinet minister Jane Philpott, basically has been appointed by Ford to actually assist with the setting up of every person in the province to get primary care within the next 5 years, in order that we have properly full doctor support throughout the province.
All right. Well, now I don't want to be criticized here, but I have to give a little bit of kudos to Ford here. He's looking for the best person that he thinks can take care of the problem, and he's crossed party lines to do it.
Yes.
I think that is a good example of what government should be doing. It turns out that a former Liberal cabinet minister, of course, has Liberal ideology. Happens to be the best person for the job. Now, normally what's happening in politics today, we like to pretend that the other side has no expertise at all. They're bad, they're evil, go away. There's demarcation lines, but Ford has stepped up here. And remember, Ford has also cooperated well with the federal liberals, and he's now looking for the best person possible to deal with our medical situation, our lack of doctors, and so on. So I just kind of like to acknowledge that here's a guy that normally in today's politics wouldn't, most other politicians wouldn't do that, but he's just looking for the best person to do the job, and he finds it's a liberal. It's a good one. That's a good one. Now she's got a tough job though.
She does.
I've just gone through this with my mother. My mother's 92 years old, and it's going to be hard to get medical help for her because there's not enough doctors. The doctors in the retirement home, they're not available to her. If she needs our own family doctor, who is mostly retired but still hangs in for a little while, hasn't got the equipment to examine her if she needs it. So she's going to have to go all the way to Fort Erie or Port Colborne to get the help she needs if she has a medical problem. And that's basically because there can't be doctors being found here to help her. I don't know what I'm going to do when my doctor retires. He's on his way to retiring. There isn't a doctor to step in.
Yeah. This is actually, I was talking with a couple of people over the last couple of months, people who are saying that, who have got serious medical conditions, yet their doctors are 15 or 20 or 25 years older than them. And, those people are now in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, who've got older doctors, and yet those doctors are actually, on the verge of retirement right now.
Yeah, mine is.
Yeah.
Mine is semi-retired now. And I think the only reason why he hangs in there is because he knows there is a massive need. So and a lot of these doctors are hanging in there longer. Like there is a doctor at one of the retirement homes here in Niagara Falls. He's a retired doctor, but he takes care of of people in a retirement home as just sort of a way of becoming semi-retired, basically retired from his practice, but still keeps his hand in by helping the older folk in a retirement home. We don't have enough doctors. When you bring in massive amounts of people from I think 431,000 full-time residents came in last year, along with hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of students and temporary workers. Who's going to take care of them? Who's going to be their doctor? You can't do that without planning ahead. And I think that's another thing that the Liberals will have to suffer from their poor planning there. In any case, she seems to be fairly well accepted by the opposition parties, who says she's acceptable. Like, for instance, said, a quote here, absolutely acceptable, and said her officials have been working to fix the problem since it emerged. We're not going to allow this to continue. I am on it. Opposition parties signaled they will pressure the government on healthcare this fall, with Ford seemingly more concerned with bike lanes and tunnel under 401, and spending as much as $1 billion to get beer, wine, and alcohol drinks to the convenience stores a year earlier than planned. Yeah, definitely Ford is looking for setting up for a re-election, for an early election, those kind of things. But this seems to be a very, very good approach that he's taken. He's found the best expert he can.
Yeah.
From a party that is idealistically different from his own, but he's got a problem and he's looking for somebody to fix it. And she seems to be the one that can do it.
Yeah, but in relation to putting politics aside, she is the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences at Queen's University and Director of the School of Medicine. So she's amply qualified to do this.
Yes, and there's a lot of complaints about Ford and how he's viewing the healthcare system and how he's trying to change it. But I think he inherited the problem from the Wynne government, and things got even worse when we got massive amounts of immigrants coming into the country and straining our healthcare system, particularly here in Southern Ontario. Northern Ontario has trouble attracting a doctor. Southern Ontario doesn't have enough doctors for the amount of people that are here. That seems to be the biggest problem going forward. But in any case, he seems to have done the right thing here. He's crossed over the line. But Philpott, on the other way, there's another way of looking at this too, is that Philpott did not like Trudeau at all. I'm pretty sure I got the right minister here. That didn't she quit or didn't she complain a lot about Trudeau's government when Trudeau threw out Wilson, Geordie Wilson?
I believe you're right. I believe you're right.
I just can't get her name right.
She had differences of opinion with Trudeau. That is, I believe, why she is no longer a minister.
Well, she turned into an independent. She pulled out of the Liberal Party because she didn't like the way the Liberal Party was run. Braybold, Geordie Wilson Braybold, something like that. I just can't think
the Attorney General. Yeah. Okay.
And
interesting that Karen is saying if her family doctor retires, that would mean 2,000 people without healthcare.
Yeah, and that's a growing problem.
Yeah.
That is because there hasn't been, like this, I keep coming back to this. Why wasn't there planning? So the Liberal government says we're going to increase immigration. We're going to double it from what it was. We're going to bring in nearly 500,000 people every year. And in 2015, they said they were going to build houses, and but they didn't. And they said, and no one ever mentioned, or like they didn't seem to understand that this was going to strain the healthcare system. They think that doctors are going to fall out of the sky like magic. They think houses are going to be built like on a snap of a finger. So they fill the country up with people who we can't house and who we can't take care of health-wise. And not only that, but the new people in the country are competing with the people already in the country for housing and healthcare. So where was the planning? Where was this? In retrospect, it should have been very obvious to them that these would be the strains on the country. But Trudeau earlier said, well, that's the housing, that's a province's problem. And he probably thought the same thing for healthcare. Well, it's the province's problem. They'll have to take care of it. Unfortunately, and I don't know what a mix-up that was. But in any case, back to Ontario, we don't have enough family doctors. I don't think Philpott would be able to fix this too quickly. It is a long, long issue. At least we have somebody that's competent to take care of the problem, but I don't expect the problem to turn around too quick. I think it's going to be a long haul, and I don't know what kind of solutions she'll be able to come up with when you have a growing population and a slowly growing healthcare system, and you can't just rain doctors onto a place. You're going to have to go to other countries and attract their doctors and be like a brain drain from other countries. You got to go to India or Indonesia or Africa or wherever a doctor is that has been educated in Western medical theory to come over and to fill up all our gaps. And look what we're doing here. Look what Welland is doing. They're offering new doctors $100,000 up front, and they got a bunch of new doctors, but they had to buy them in. Are we going to have to do the same thing? Now we are competing with other cities for doctors, and we're bribing them to come here or come there. We can't. A lot of towns cannot match the bribes that we can here in Southern Ontario.
Yes, certainly that's very true, because when you've got some money that you can put up, and off the city budget, $100,000 is not a lot of money, but it might make all the difference between a doctor going to Northern Ontario or not.
Yeah, well, they've always had trouble getting people up there anyhow. But
can
you imagine you got a doctor starting to set up practice in Mississauga or other places that are very lucrative, and then Welland comes and knocks on the door. Hey, doc, I want you to come to Welland. And he says, well, I kind of like it here. Here's 100 G's for you. And guess what? We'll find you a nice house and everything. You come here and we'll fix you up. You stay 5 years. That's all you got to do. But get over here, establish yourself. And then Niagara Falls knocks on the door and says, look, I hear Welland is offering you 100 G's. Guess what? We got 110.
Yeah. And that actually is, do you want that kind of thing in the recruitment process? Clearly, probably not. But, I understand why it comes about, because towns are acting out of desperation.
Sure. If you're a city official, I'd do the same thing. If we were a city official and we can't get doctors here, and someone said, Dave, go talk to those doctors over there, see if you can get them to come over here. And I said, with what? Here's a stack of money. See if you can bring them here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Moving on. Liberal MP Sean Casey is the first to be confirmed that he signed a letter calling upon Justin Trudeau to resign. Right, arguing it would be the best interest of the country to let somebody else take the reins.
We find that the politicians are very, very reluctant to go against their leader. We saw this happening south of the border when just about everybody that worked with Joe Biden realized that he was unfit for office, but wouldn't say anything. Absolutely would not say anything. And he had to demonstrate it for the whole world in a debate where he was just complete muddle. And then, and only then, when it was completely clear to everyone that he had to step aside. Now, Trudeau is going to be, there's going to be all kinds of people that praise him and say how wonderful he is. He's going to be able, he's not facing reality right now, it seems, or at least seems to a lot of people. And one member is the only one that has enough courage. There's only one guy I saw on TV, he's from down east, and he's saying, look, he's saying his constituencies are liberals, but they can't vote for Justin Trudeau, and they won't vote for him if Justin Trudeau is the leader, he is saying. So he is the most vocal one. He's saying he's got to go.
Casey is an MP in Charlottetown, which is down east, that's for sure.
PEI,
yeah, that's what I thought, yep. And he told reporters Monday he signed a letter asking Prime Minister to resign. I would not say how many colleagues had also signed. He's the first to come out and say he no longer supports the Prime Minister.
You know what? He can do that because he probably doesn't have a ministry. He isn't part of the caucus, he's part of the caucus, but he's probably not part of the ministries. And so he's just if he's a backbencher, he can say anything he wants. He doesn't have anything to risk. if he says that, he's pretty confident he'll get a seat back, even if the Liberals lose by and large. So he's pretty safe in saying that, I guess. But like, he's got nothing to lose. But
at this stage,
the other ones are the ones that I'm worried about. Will they have a strong enough voice to convince Trudeau? I think I'm with you on this one, that Trudeau will not listen.
Yeah, I don't think he'll listen. I really don't. And essentially, what may end up happening is that Casey may well be thrown out of the caucus.
No, I don't think so. I think he will not be thrown out of the caucus.
Well, it's a different position. It's a different situation than Raybould, than those earlier people that walked out of the caucus.
Yes, well, completely different. But this here is much different. We are in a situation where the leader is evidently a real drain on the party. The party is unpopular, and their leader's even more unpopular than the party. So when people are angry at Trudeau specifically, what you do is remove Trudeau and try to make everything look a little bit rosier when you have a leader that has polling worse than your party, and your party's not polling well, and your leader's polling much worse than your party overall. You get rid of the party, you get rid of the leader. However, that's a very hard thing to do. Now, I admire Trudeau in a way, because he certainly believes in himself very strongly that he can overcome this. And if he does go into election and doesn't do nearly as bad as everyone says, I'd have to be the first one to tip my hat to him. But at this particular time, I'm trying to take the view of the Liberal backbenchers in the party now, who risk losing their seats mainly because their constituents dislike Trudeau himself. Trudeau is an elitist, and he's in the same. He's a very isolated guy. He's elitist guy, and he seems to be out of touch with the average Canadian. And his right-hand man basically is Chrystia Freeland, who, as we know, when the economic crisis began, told everybody to cancel their Disney subscriptions because that's what you could do. Can you imagine? Right? That's where their mind is. Oh, everybody's struggling getting food. Everybody's struggling getting food. Everybody's struggling. There's no jobs. Everybody's struggling with their rent. They're lining up at food kitchens. And Chrystia Freeland says, you know what? We canceled our Disney subscription, as if to say that the average Canadian is behind the eight ball because they have too many TV subscriptions.
And you know what? Hey, maybe I ought to start thinking about getting a Disney subscription. I've heard they're not as expensive as Anyway, let's not go there.
So that's where their mind is at, Okay, and the same thing as idealism. Okay, we're going to bring people from all over the world. We're going to really, improve the economy by filling up the country. But they're trying to do it with a snap of the fingers, without building houses and without making sure that everybody has
done wrong.
So today, all the stories sort of all lend into one, and now they're looking at somebody that has less cosmopolitan of flair and one more practical, down-earth abilities, like Mark Carney, who is definitely not a drama school teacher that JT was. He is actually a guy that's been in, although he's wisely pulled out of the World Economic Forum, which would be a shackle on it, or it would be an albatross on him, because of the sort of conspiracies that surround that. But he's a guy that knows things. Like, he's done practical things, where Trudeau goes around with his high-minded idealism, but with no practical experience on how to do that, how to make those ideas happen. It's a matter of governing. If you get into a company, you've got a lot of really good ideas. You're going to invent this. You're going to invent that. You're going to invent that. But if the core substance of your company isn't working well, then how can you do all these other things? Think of a steel mill. Think of a steel mill, and you buy a steel mill. I'll go back to my own roots. So say if you buy a steel mill and you're making steel and you make some pretty good steel, but you want to make better steel and more steel. And so you send a lot of money into experimenting this and experimenting that and trying to figure out different ways of doing this and that, and using all your money up on R&D and forgetting that you have a steel mill to run, and that steel mill has to run, and it has to make money. And that's pretty much what the liberals have done.
The point being exactly what you're saying there is you've got to find the right balance. You've got to both develop new business as well as managing the existing business. And it's a balance.
Yes, it is.
It's always about fine tuning, keeping all of those things in balance. Developing new technology, developing sales, developing the current technologies that you've got.
Yeah, sure. You could say, I'm going to make the steel mill the biggest steel mill in the world, and I'm going to put another blast furnace here, another blast furnace here, and we're going to have electric furnaces over here and there and there. And you forget the fact that you already have a steel mill and it has to run. That's called governing. And if you don't, and what the Liberals have done is forgot about the business of Canada, the everyday business of governing fairly and justly, and concentrating on their ideals, and that's why they can't
ideals have become
they can't procure a contract without it going crazy. We pay $55 million for a $100,000 app called Can. We've paid millions and millions of dollars in that tech company, that green tech company, and full of corruption from top to bottom, and they can't see that, so they can't govern. They've got good ideas, but they can't govern. They can't implement them.
Yeah, and this is part of the problem that we face right now, is that whole balance is completely out of whack. Well, I do expect as time goes on, as we get closer to an election, it tends to give in many instances, will tend to give back some points to the governing party in many instances, but maybe not in this instance. And the economy may bounce back next year, but it may not.
Yeah. Well, they're kind of hoping that it will, and that will make them look a little rosier. I don't know. It's a very interesting question. Like Sean Casey, the guy from down east, PI, he's the only one with the guts to say anything, but also he's in a position where he can't. He's not a part of a ministry. He's not going to lose his job. He doesn't have to worry about offending the power base that is in the Liberal Party at this particular time, because he's not part of it. And we'll see what happens. I think, as I've often said, Trudeau's 9/11 will be 11/11.
As you've been saying more recently. But anyway, we'll leave it at that point, I think.
I think that one of the things he might do after Christmas, I think what you're going to try to do is stagger towards Christmas and hope to just sort of stay alive until Christmas. And then after Christmas, if things are still so bad, that he will prorogue the government.
Yeah, I suspect you're probably right, because proroguing the government to get us through into nobody wants an election in the spring. Nobody wants an election in February, March, that's for sure. Nobody wants to be going out in the freezing cold and voting, right? So proroguing Parliament makes sense.
With
Sorry?
the exception of maybe Doug Ford.
Oh, yeah, but he's got Southern Ontario, and it'll be nice and sunny here. And, you know, we're talking about Southern Ontario. It'll be nice and sunny, you know, so Doug Ford can do it anytime he wants.
He's going to, I tell you, the guy has no shame. He's going to have conservatives handing out bottles of beer at every voting station.
The guy doesn't drink, though.
It doesn't, but it does. But remember, he's the guy that offered everybody a buck of beer. So yeah. He's gonna hand out at least coupons.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know, that's good. That's good. Hopefully this is moving in the right. You know, well, we'll see.
Well, I have to say one last thing though about we like to make fun of Doug Ford, but he is the only one who's crossed party lines, hasn't he? He is the only one that's taken on he's worked very effectively with the federal Liberals, and he hasn't catcalled them. He hasn't anything. He just worked with them, and he's appreciated their effort.
He has to,
right? Yeah, but he's done it in the old-fashioned way. He's done it like old politicians used to. When they when they have a chance to cooperate, they cooperate. He isn't viewing this as some sort of cultural iconic thing where you automatically have to hate your opposition. And then here again, he's taken a liberal, idealistic liberal, and put her in charge of our healthcare needs because she's the best to do the job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You will not find that happening in other politics in North America right now. So I have to tip my hat to Doug on that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I applaud him for doing that. Ford is moving in the right direction, and Trudeau is not right now.
No, Ford sees the advantage of taking advantage of whatever talent is there. If it's an alien from Mars, if it's you know what I mean. So So I think in that particular case, he's a good manager. You know, we talked about managing. Right?
He's getting the best person for the right job.
Yeah,
he's recognizing a tough job, and he's getting a good person in to achieve it. Yes, absolutely.
So I think we need a little bit more of that.
Yeah, we do. All right. And if the Liberals had done a bit more of that, they might not be in the position they're in today.
Oh, they're always in cloud nine. They think, just because we command it, everything is going to be wonderful. That's why they're elitist. They've never done any of the hard work, I think. Anyway.
Just as a quick point before we go, I didn't, because we were talking about several things that were very intense related to Canada, I didn't go over to the Gaza story. My apologies. I know it was there. I pushed it back. But we also need to look at the Beirut situation as well tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll just say this, that the U.S. has shown no spine at all on this, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow. I'm just disgusted at the Western response to Gaza. I think we will never be forgiven for this. No journalists at all are allowed in there. Only the people who are living there are getting the films out, or maybe some of the Doctors Without Borders and the other NGOs are getting pictures out and stuff like this. We will not be forgiven for this. The West will not be forgiven for this. This is an atrocious thing that's happening here. And I just can't understand why we keep letting this happen. And right now, unfortunately, I think maybe things will improve after the election. If Harris wins, then Joe Biden can come down hard on the Israelis. But in the meantime, people are dying in mass because people are worrying about what's going to happen in this election.
Yeah.
Just idiotic.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. And Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you adieu.